Hi there, I'm Steve Schmidt. I'm the Chief Information Security Officer here at AWS. I'd like to welcome you to AWS Verified, where we'll be discussing the latest in cybersecurity, privacy, and the cloud. Today, my guest is Mike Gordon, the Vice President and Chief Information Security Officer for the Lockheed Martin Corporation. Thanks for joining me today, Mike.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me.
For those who don't know Lockheed Martin very well, can you tell us a little bit about the company, what you do?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Lockheed Martin is a global security and aerospace company, and we have about 110,000 employees in more than 50 countries around the world. You're probably familiar with us from some of the cutting-edge military platforms we build, like the F-35 fighter jet, C-130 cargo plane, or the Black Hawk helicopter. But what you might not know is that we also deliver full-spectrum cyber capabilities and cyber-resilient systems to defense, intelligence, and global security customers around the world. We also build systems that you probably use every day, like satellites for GPS, weather prediction, and communications. In fact, we've also supported every NASA mission to Mars and built the heat shield for the Mars Perseverance rover that just recently landed.
Congrats on your contribution to the Mars missions, by the way. That was really cool to watch go off in such a smooth way.
Amazing every time, yeah.
So at Lockheed Martin, you're responsible for the overall information security strategy, the policy that goes along with that, security engineering, operations, and cyber threat detection and response. We'd like to dive a little bit deeper into some of those areas today. So how has Lockheed Martin adapted its approach to cyber threats, especially the parts around detection and response?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. We took an approach a long time ago to embed adversary mindset into our defensive positions. And so we created this concept of intelligence-driven defense. A lot of people have heard of the Lockheed Martin cyber kill chain, and that kill chain is a 7-step sequence of activities that helps us understand what the adversaries are doing and thinking, and helps us build defensive countermeasures all along their sequence of their attack.
Mike, Lockheed Martin has done some really interesting work in cyber resiliency. Can you tell us a little about your work there and how the resiliency concept informs your cyber strategy overall?
Cybersecurity is embedded in everything we do. We want to make sure that cyber resiliency is not just around supporting and defending our corporate networks, but also those platforms that we deliver to military and government customers around the world. To do so, we developed a new concept called the Cyber Resiliency Framework, or CRL. And what the CRL offers us is a standard way to measure the cyber resiliency maturity of a weapons system. That CRL framework, it's used to assist stakeholders in prioritizing risks and selecting courses of action that help maximize the effect against cyber attacks. The CRL also helps us employ common risk and engineering-based approaches, and it leverages common systems and tools such as the NIST management framework and Lockheed Martin threat-driven methodologies.
Interesting. The focus on risk there is something that really resonates well because it allows you to adjust over time, and it's an area that I think a lot of people under-recognize as something that's a living, breathing entity. You have to continue to reevaluate risk over time, and I think that lends itself to a more secure infrastructure if you do so.
Yeah, absolutely. I think taking a more risk-driven approach is the mindset that we've seen organizations try to take over the last few years as they mature their cyber postures. I think that organizations who have a higher degree of maturity are way more focused on risk management than one specific vulnerability or one specific cybersecurity problem.
And you speak about your customers there because Lockheed Martin both defends its own networks, but you also build cyber capabilities for your customers. What's your focus in cyber for your customers, and how are you looking to cross-pollinate capabilities from your internal operations to your customer offerings?
Yeah, I think what we do is really cool there. We kind of take this inside-out approach, and we look at where there are gaps in technologies, gaps in processes or capabilities, and we try to build new systems, new cyber defenses that can fill those gaps. And then ultimately, we can take those and bring those to our customer-facing solutions. And I'll give you a cloud example. As we think about cloud security, there's always new capabilities, new services coming out from companies like AWS. And sometimes we may have a security requirement that the native service doesn't have an offering for straight out of the box. And when we started on our cloud journey, we realized that we needed to build some custom capability to solve those problems. So we created a tool that we call Hexagen. And what Hexagen does is it's a kind of an extensible framework and a platform that allows us to develop security controls and guardrails within the AWS cloud, and then put those enforcements across our different cloud accounts. And what's cool is I think everything ultimately catches up with itself. And this is where like now we are starting to use AWS config for some of those capabilities, but we still leverage Hexagen when there's a new idea or a new thing that we want to implement.
Mike, our customers ask us a lot about how we do zero trust at AWS. How do you approach zero trust in the defense industry supply chain?
We're trying to manage risk, as we talked about earlier. We've got 16,000 suppliers that provide components to Lockheed Martin. Those span every US state, 50 countries around the world. Over 5,000 of those suppliers have really critical information that we want to make sure is protected in one way or another. And so we try to take zero trust approaches to how we provide them data and how they access systems that they need in order to provide the services that they're building for us. So, for example, when we talk about data, we'll think a lot more about modern data level protections. How do we apply DRM, digital rights management types of controls to critical data as it moves through our supply chain as an area of focus for us. But we also think about how do we bring and leverage the security of the cloud to bear for our suppliers.
It's interesting you talk about the sort of the incredible variety of stakeholders that you have to work with there, from your suppliers, but you've also got your own internal teammates and then government agencies, and they all seem to have a little bit different take on how to operate in a zero trust environment and operate securely. So how do you manage the collaboration standards? How do people work together successfully?
Yeah, well, I laugh because I think collaboration standards are one of the biggest challenges in IT these days, because not only do we have the complexities of just normal security like you would in the corporate commercial world, but we've got to have this kind of government grade security on top of that. So most of our collaborative solutions end up on top of a GovCloud type of a scenario, or especially hardened SaaS solutions for collaboration. I also want to take a minute just to talk about how we collaborate across our industry, not so much from a technology perspective, but process perspective. We do a lot of work with our supply chain. We are heavily involved in the National Defense ISAC. We talk to our customers on a daily basis, and continuous threat sharing, risk sharing, defensive strategies for how to harden a network are really, really big focuses for our collaboration. We have a really strong partnership with the large defense industrial base companies out there, companies like Lockheed Martin, and we work with them to conduct things like tabletop exercises where our cyber teams get together and kind of test each other and try to understand how we would work together if there was more of a cross-industry attack, which is not uncommon anymore.
It's interesting you bring up the tabletop exercise. I know that we've done what we call game day exercises, tabletop exercises with your team, precisely for the reason that we don't want to have to be figuring out how to do this in the heat of battle. This is something that we've got to make sure is lined up correctly from the beginning, and we exercise it regularly, because skills atrophy over time, and if you don't continually exercise them, you're going to lose track of something critically important.
My team has gotten a lot of benefit from those game day activities with your team and your organization. In particular, I think that incident response in the cloud is a new field to some extent. Your team might be used to it, it's every day for you, but for corporations who are adopting cloud services, transitioning from how do I analyze system level data and the type of visibility that I get on-prem is very different from how do I analyze CloudTrail logs and other data streams that are flowing off from the cloud. And that's a learning exercise, and I think those tabletops are really beneficial for a better understanding of that.
So you're the leader of a large security organization and the security leader of a large organization. How do you help the people in your organization evolve and learn as they move through the cloud transformation journey?
Yeah, we've been talking about technology a lot, but at the end of the day, the people are the most important part. And so we've really tried to work hard to enable our teams to get the training they need, to upskill the workforce. Security in a modern IT stack is much different than it was in a legacy IT stack. And so they have to get upskilled. So we give them the classroom learning they need, the on-the-job opportunities. We've built sandboxes so that they can go into the cloud environments, get their hands dirty, test and experiment. And we really try to emphasize things like reusability. Everything is code first. how to share knowledge, and help our teams learn and help each other as they go along the way.
So Mike, you've talked a lot about what you've learned in the process of moving to the cloud. What were the unexpected benefits of moving to the cloud?
Yeah, I think the most unexpected benefit is how much data there is available to my security organization to consume and work from. Visibility is far greater than I thought it was going to be. The other thing I'd add is I think the big mind shift of what cloud does for a company. I think in the early days, it was often viewed as someone else's remote data center. I'm going to decommission my on-prem data centers in order to not have to manage the touch labor and the infrastructure around physical devices and move those to the cloud. But what we've really evolved to understand is it is a place, it's a platform for robust DevSecOps, great place for containerization, leveraging microservices, and really focusing a lot on secure coding pipelines and the automated kind of capabilities to leverage the cloud versus just a place to store data, just another data center.
Mike, thanks so much for your time today. It's been awesome having you on AWS Verified.
Hey, and thank you, Steve. It's been a great experience to be here with you today.